Okay, so this question is using an identity, and so definitely you've seen the identity that sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1, and that tan x equals sine x divided by cosine of x. Right, so all we're going to use is that second one. So we've got to prove that cos x plus sine x times tan x is the same thing as 1 over cos x. So what we're going to do, we're going to switch out sine x for our identity. Okay, so now I've got that. Now, if I think about this, I've got cosine, I've got sine times sine. So now I've got cosine of x plus sine squared x divided by cosine of x. And what I want to do, I'm going to combine, well, I'm going to write this as an equivalent fraction and then combine them. So cosine, to make this an equivalent fraction, what I'm going to do, I'm going to multiply the numerator and the denominator by cosine of x. So now I've got cosine squared of x plus sine squared of x, all divided by cosine of x. Okay, right. Well, now we're going to use the other identity, and the cosine squared of x plus sine squared of x is equal to 1, and that's our other identity. Okay, and that's 1 over cosine of x, and therefore I have proved part A. Okay, now part B is now I've got to solve it. So now I've got 2 sine squared of x equals cosine squared of x. Well, we're going to use that identity again. What I'm going to do, I'm going to divide both sides by cosine squared of x. So now I've got 2 sine squared divided by cosine squared. Well, that's tan squared of x. Cosine squared of x divided by cosine squared of x is just 1. And I want to find a solution, so I want this in one function. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So now I've got tan squared of x is equal to half. Well, that means that tan of x is equal to, don't forget this, I'm taking a square root, so it's plus and minus because there are 2 possible answers, of the square root of a half. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is use my calculator and say what is the square root, what is tan for that? So let me make sure I've got the right thing. My angle input, I want it in degrees. I'm going to do shift tan or arc tan of the square root of 1/2. And I get 35.26 degrees. So remember, what we're doing is I want to find x. So I'm taking arctan of the square root of a half, and that is equal to 35.26 degrees. Now, if you imagine, if I draw my graph of tan, okay, the tan graph does this through 0, and then we have 90 degrees, we have an asymptote, and then we have the same graph, And then at 270 we have another graph. So at 180 our graph goes through 0. So now if you think about the square root of a half, I've got a positive solution, and at negative square root of a half I have got a solution. Now I only want them between 0 and 180. So 0 being here and 180 being here. So that means that I've got one solution here and I've got one solution here. So I've got my 35.26. That is this solution. So now x is also equal to tan minus 1 of minus square root of a half. So I do that, minus square root of 1 divided by 2. And that gives me minus 35.26 degrees. But that is not in my range. That is this solution, because your calculator always gives you the closest one to 0. So what I've got to do is I've got to add 180 degrees, and then I get 144.73. 144.73 degrees, and that is now this solution. Okay, because it's a periodic function, so it repeats every 180 degrees. Okay, I'm pretty sure that you've seen those two identities. If not, let me know.